Ladies and gentlemen, today we have hopefully an extremely fun video where you guys, yes, you right there watching the video, you're going to decide on the worst champion of each class in Marvel Contest of Champions. So we're going to be left with 6 champions after this video. This will be open for voting for 24 hours, guys. You have a day to get in your votes, and then tomorrow we're going to look at each of the characters, and then I'm going to do a video kind of defending them the best I can, talking about all their positive points and uses in the game, and then you guys, out of those 6 characters, are going to vote on the worst one, guys. So we decide the absolute worst character, the most useless character to pull in Marvel Contest of Champions, and then we're going to do a video kind of reworking that character, talking about why it's a bad character, and, you know, what abilities could be changed and stuff. But, you know, I thought this would be a little bit fun and get you guys involved in the channel and all stuff. And finally, guys, we can have a definitive community opinion of which champions are pretty bad. But let's see, guys. Let's see. So again, in today's video, we're going to go through the nominations. I'm going to go through every class in the game at the moment and all of the champions and talk about which ones I believe are the worst for every class. Now, in terms of which champions we're including in the video, I've decided to exclude Punisher and any champion that won't be available in the kind of future in a premium hero crystal or a 4-star crystal. So not stuff like, you know, Kang, Thanos, Immortal Iron Fist, but apart from that, yeah, everything else is pretty much free reign. If it's set to appear in a 4-star or premium hero crystal or already is in one, then it's on the table, guys. It is on the table. It is up for debate. But I think, you know, if I was to include Punisher, I think by far Punisher is the worst character in the game at the moment. But the fact you get him from an arena crystal and the, you know, other better rewards that you can, well, the other rewards in comparison that you can get are 45 units or 10,000 gold, well, getting a 4-star Punisher is much better than both of those. So I'd probably say that, you know, 4-star Punisher is pretty good, guys. He's pretty good. And also, guys, we're putting Unstoppable Colossus on the table for this one because he's a fairly, like, achievable character to get for most people. So yeah, Unstoppable Colossus and anybody that you can get from a 4-star or premium hero crystal, because a lot of the trophy champions seem to be a little bit bad for the most part. Like, they ain't all that bad, but, you know, having them is pretty cool, guys. If you got Kang, if you got Thanos, well, that's some pretty impressive stuff. But anyway, let's start off with Science. Science is probably one of the most all-over-the-place classes in the game, because there are so many amazing champions, in my opinion, in the Science tree, but there are also quite a few terrible ones, in my opinion. I think the nominations for duds, guys, the worst champion in Science is probably somewhere between Luke Cage, Spider-Gwen, Regular Hulk, Joe Fixit, She-Hulk, and Red Hulk. I think aside from that, all of the other characters have like a really fairly solid use in the game, but I think, you know, personally, when it comes to Science champions, I lean very much towards Spider-Gwen now, just because of how insanely weak her armor break ability is. I don't think she is, like, great utility for absolutely anything in the game. Just every context of the game, there is a better champion. Like, even our unblockable heavy attack is nowhere near as valuable as a buff like Unstoppable, because even with the unblockable heavy attack, you can still be interrupted by any special attacks. So, you know, that really ruins a lot of plans when it comes to fighting, for example, Mordo in the monthly event quest. A lot of people like use Spider-Gwen for unblockable heavy, but no, that was pretty useless. And Mr. Luke Cage, Mr. Pillow Hands himself, he's a pretty good Alliance War defender, I guess. He's got a little bit of utility when it comes to being able to you know, ignore the first hit he takes, so that could potentially be used to survive a level 3. But in comparison to a champion like the Red Suit Magneto, he can take 5 level 3s without dying. So, you know, if you want to take a lot of level 3s, you do have a little bit of a better option there. But I can see him being used in terms of Hulk. You know, not too much utility there. Just deals like an incredible amount of damage, you know, when he's on very low health, but there are a lot of scenarios where that isn't too useful. And what do we have? She-Hulk stuns, does kind of a fairly average-ish damage. The stun is quite good, especially when paired with Daredevil for the synergy, but apart from that, doesn't really have too much going for her. And then finally we have Joe Fixit. I maybe don't think Joe Fixit is too bad under certain circumstances, because if you get these, I believe it's Club's buff, you actually get 10% crit for every 5 combo hits you do. So after 50 guys, 100% crit chance, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. But anyway, those are my nominations, guys, for science. You know, those are some of the ones that I think that, are the worst champions. But again, guys, if you want to leave any feedback on champions that you believe the worst are for each class in the comments below, please do leave a bit of constructive feedback. Don't just be like, oh, Spider-Gwen's really, really bad. Just kind of share your opinion in a very constructive way. Say she's bad because of X, Y, and Z, or bad in comparison by that. So yeah, guys, constructivity, that's the whole point of this exercise. We've got to figure out who's the worst and how we can, you know, use suggestions to hopefully make them a little bit better. Now, in terms of the skill champions, I think the skill class is quite a strong class. It has a lot going for it, but in terms of actual usability, I would probably say Winter Soldier is, you know, comes to mind at the moment as the worst skill champion for me personally. Doesn't really have too much going for him, has quite a weak bleed, his duped ability kind of drains power, but it is very, very unreliable. So I'd say the Winter Soldier isn't really that hype for me. I think Karnak's quite good for bypassing evasion, Black Panther Civil War is an amazing defender, Hawkeye has that power drain level 1, Crossbones and Black Widow, a beast for bypassing defensive ability accuracy, Agent Venom is just awesome all around. Black Panther, he might be a nomination, because like that character's really, really good when you can bleed the opponent, but when you can't, you know, you don't really have much going for the character. But then again, I'd still say maybe a little bit more overall than Winter Soldier. Then we got Falcon, guys, who I do not personally rate very highly. I think it's good to have a 4-star Falcon for the synergy bonus that he has, because he has like a double synergy bonus with one of his abilities. So that's pretty good. Moon Knight's a fairly good character. You could argue that Netflix Daredevil maybe isn't that great. Classic Daredevil, I think, is pretty amazing, especially for his 100% potential to evade projectiles. Punisher, by far the worst skill champion, but he's out this race. And Elektra, who I don't necessarily think is an overly great champion, but does have a little bit going for her. The fact that she can debuff and have that, you know, minus ability accuracy reduction on the opponent is very, very good. But if the opponent's ever immune to debuffs, like the Red Suit Deadpool is in the Road to Labyrinth 3.5, then she isn't terribly useful, and you do need, you know, a Crossbones or Black Widow to bypass that. So I think the skill tree has a lot going for it. I think one of the hardest ones to decide for me is actually the worst champion in the Mutant tree, the Mutant class, because I don't think any champion in here is like really, really bad. You know, when you look at the science champions, there are no ones that are like absolute duds. I think for me in the Mutant class, it falls between either Magneto Marvel Now, who is, in my opinion, a bit of a worse version than Red Suit Magneto, just because if you get one shot with, you can get one shot with the Magneto Marvel Now, because his ability damage reduction cap is stronger, but it doesn't trigger till 60%. So if you take one level 3 when you're above 60% health, boom, you're dead like that. Whereas the classic Magneto can take multiple level 3s when he's awakened from the start of the fight. I think Rogue's a pretty good character, has the lifesteal, quite good for Alliance War defense, especially if you have the stun reduction mastery. Red Suit Deadpool is a gold, Nightcrawler is a gold. Both the versions of Wolverine X23 and Classic are pretty good. Gambit, I think, is a bit of a lacking character. He was nowhere near as good as anybody expected. Like, we all really wanted him to be a really hyped champion, because Gambit is such a loved character from the comics. And he was a bit of a disappointment in terms of his actual usability and abilities. He does have some stuff, like an ability accuracy reduction of, I believe it's 62% on his level 2, but that, again, doesn't have a 100% chance to proc. So I don't think overall Gambit is really that great. He's a bit of an unreliable character. I hate that you have to, like, charge heavy attacks to get additional damage out of him. You could also maybe argue that Colossus is maybe not so much of a great character in the current state of the game. He relies, you know, heavily on getting those sweet and juicy armor up buffs, which can quickly be broken down by champions like Scarlet Witch, and in his place, you know, I think champions like Juggernaut, Hulkbuster, and Rhino are much, much better Alliance War defenders, personally, if you do want a tank of a champion. And then we have, Deadpool X-Force, who heavily, again, much like Black Panther, relies on bleeding the opponent, and I don't think, yeah, he doesn't really have too much going for him. I've got him as rank 4. I have him as an Alliance War Defender just because his power gain is quite valuable and can occasionally hit people with level 3, but he was just kind of a champion that I ranked because he had really, really good prestige. But when it comes to the worst champion in the game, guys, I want you to completely disregard prestige. Like, it doesn't really matter at all about prestige. We're just talking about the actual usability and functionality of the character. And then finally, we have Old Man Logan, who, in my opinion, again, is just a worse version of both X-23 and Wolverine. If you want a Wolverine that heals a lot, you go for the classic version. If you want one that deals a lot of damage, X-23 is better. Even in the longer fight, she's still a much, much better option because her bleed is so incredibly ridiculous. Plus her regeneration as well is much, much better. So I think that makes Old Man Logan, you know, in comparison, a bit pointless. A bit of a pointless champion. I don't think he has much going for him. So I think if I had to choose a champion, it would probably be Old Man Logan, personally. Or maybe Deadpool X-Force. But there are a few in the race, guys. Then we look at Cosmic, and I think Cosmic is probably one of the classes that has a lot of very, like, average or slightly above average champions, 4 obviously being the absolute god of the Cosmic class, but I think the worst champion, by a bit of a margin, is actually Kamala Khan Miss Marvel. I don't think this champion has much going for her. In comparison to Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, she's just so much worse in every way. Her dupe ability doesn't add too much additional to the character. She hits really, really, really softly. Again, just a worse version of Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, in my opinion. Also, Venompool. Venompool is really not a great character after we found out kind of his hidden stats and abilities and saw his crit rate is just astronomically low. Like, it is ridiculous. It's like a good 10% behind every other character, his crit chance, which is pretty crippling, actually. That's a huge amount of his base crit kind of just instantly tossed out the window. I don't really rate Venompool's duped ability. It gives you random stuff that most of the time you can't really use practically, like it'll randomly trigger like Unstoppable or stuff like Immunity, which in very certain circumstances that could be beneficial, but again, it's just completely random for it to trigger and a completely random effect. And it's not like Scarlet Witch where you can have just these aggressive procs like on almost every other attack, you know, so you eventually, like, you're gonna get like good stuff all the time. It's just really random useful stuff. But Venompool again does have some utility in terms of his bleed and also his heal block on his level 2, but overall the champion's pretty underwhelming. And then we also have Phoenix, who again at the moment in her current state is so easy to bypass her deferred death ability, so I think she's really, really easy to kill. Doesn't really have much going for her offensively, so I think Phoenix could arguably be one of the worst worst Cosmic champions, if not the worst, but I think she's still a little bit better in comparison than Kamala Khan. We have Groot. I think Groot's like a pretty solid defender, so I'm going to leave him out. I think, you know, he's going to be in the survey, guys, if you want to vote for Groot as the worst champion, but he doesn't really bring too much to the table offensively, but as a defender, I think he's really solid, especially in the lower tiers of Alliance War. A lot of people really, really struggle to fight him, so I think he's quite good. But Groot is one of those enemies that when you learn how to fight him and you're really, really good at it, he becomes quite easy. He does become quite easy. And then finally we have Black Bolt, who with the removal to the perfect block synergies has become a considerably less desired champion. He still has a little bit going for him, you know, gains a bit of fury, bit of attack on his crits, and also every time he takes a crit, he's got quite a nice stun as well. But apart from that, I guess he's a pretty mediocre. I'd maybe say he's a bit above average. Like, he ain't that bad, but he's in like a god tier, like 4. But yeah, those are some of my nominations for the worst Cosmic champions. And let's move on to Tech, which is a bit of a fleeting class. There aren't really that many Tech champions in the game. I'm also going to exclude, what is it, the very classic version of Vision from this ranking. But I believe, guys, the worst Tech champion is Iron Patriot, but I believe coming quite a close second is War Machine. A lot of people say War Machine, just put him on unblockable level 1 in Alliance War. I still think, like, for most people, Spider-Man is such a better option for those unblockable level 1s in Alliance War. Just so many people still have no idea how to play around and fully evade Spider-Man's level 1, and plus he's going to have evade throughout the entirety of the fight. If you get really lucky and are playing very aggressively, you know, you can just push an unblockable level 1 War Machine to level 2, and that's a way to kind of, you know, sometimes play around it. But I can see why he could be used for that, but I don't really see any reason why why you would just take like a war machine up to 550, just to, you know, place him on unblockable level 1. It just seems like a bit of a waste of catalyst and resources to me. Personally, I don't really rate Civil Warrior that much either. I think he's a worse version of Vision in comparison. The power drain is a lot weaker. He doesn't have poison or bleed immunity. His damage is a little bit better, and his animations are a lot cooler. He's a much more fun champion to play. He's got some armor up, so, you know, if you do take any damage, you're gonna reduce that a little bit. But, you know, Vision, if you want a power drain, if you want a heal block, if you want to bypass poison and bleed immunity, which these are such common circumstances in the endgame of MCOC, Vision is always the better option. So, you know, that's kind of why I often say that I believe he's a worse version. And then who else do we have? Hulkbuster. I think Hulkbuster is personally a really, really good champion. If you go all out, if you go full Hulkbuster, 550 for Alliance War Defense, this guy's a tank. Like, he is so ridiculously good, especially with the Willpower Mastery. Just takes ages to kill. And yeah, with the Willpower Mastery, he's just going to be healing a ridiculous amount. So I quite like Hulkbuster. If you go full Hulkbuster, but, you know, to make Hulkbuster work, guys, you gotta go full. Then also, we have like Star-Lord, Ultron, Rocket Raccoon, Iron Man. I think, again, like, Iron Man is just a better version of Iron Patriot. Rocket Raccoon is just a beast in terms of prestige and also very good for boss killing in kind of tier 1 alliance quests. A lot of people like to use him for fighting Cyclops and Kang. So, yeah, I think that's it for the tech class, guys. I'd definitely go Iron Patriot, with War Machine maybe being a close second. And then finally, guys, we have the Mystic class. Now, I'm missing 2 champions off this, which are... what am I missing? I'm missing Mordo and also Dr. Voodoo, who are both amazing champions. I think Mystic is probably the strongest class in the game, because so many of the characters are ridiculously good. They just have such a well-defined use in the game, but there's one character who's maybe like slightly above average, and that's Loki. And I got a 4-star Loki yesterday, actually, on the Christmas Day opening. Brought him up to 330 because I wanted to test out the character. He hits like a bit of a wet noodle, and I had some theories about him, you know, maybe being a little bit better than I put him down to be. But he's really bad. He's a really, really terrible character, in my opinion. The only thing that he has going for him is the buff steal. And in a lot of scenarios, I don't think there's... actually, in every scenario in the game, there isn't a case in which a Scarlet Witch, or Magic, or Guillotine, or Doctor Strange is a better champion. Like, in every scenario, he is not better than any one of those champions. So I see absolutely no reason to ever pour, you know, any of your tier 4 basic catalyst or tier 4 Mystic Catalyst into this champion. It just seems like a little bit of a waste. And, you know, when I've been talking about Loki these last few months, everybody's like, but, you know, Loki has one thing going for him: prestige. He's the best Mystic character. And that was true. That was true for like a couple of months. I believe it was like 2.5 months it was true for. And now we have Mordo, who's now the new highest prestige character for Mystic. So yeah, guys, save your Mystic Catalyst if you just want that prestige for Mordo, because not only is he the highest prestige in game for a Mystic champion, but also he is amazing. He's such an amazing Alliance War Defender. You stick him on a Thorns node, he's God tier. Just so good for many nodes. Also a very fun champion to play offensively. Has regeneration on his level 3. But apart from that, like Juggernaut, Unstoppable Colossus, Magic are exceptional Alliance War Defenders. Maybe the character that I would say maybe comes like a close second, or could possibly be rivaled with Loki, is Iron Fist. Iron Fist, you know, has an incredible amount of damage, a really nice armor break, but that's really all he's got going for him. He's a very flimsy champion in terms of his health pool, takes damage very easily, so it's kind of maybe like looking at the armor break and increased damage versus the very kind of like average, below damage, but maybe below average damage, I'd say, for Loki, and also having the buff still. And I would probably say that I value Iron Fist a little bit more, because especially like if you're a newer player and you need like a really solid option for beating Kang or some bosses in Alliance Quest, I think Iron Fist is quite good for that, because especially when you're fighting Kang, you're constantly nullifying that armor up just by continually armor breaking it. So I think he's pretty good for that. Ghost Rider, Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, 4 Jane Foster, Guillotine, all amazing characters. Like, their damage output is ridiculous, but I think when it comes to the Mystic Champions, it is really, in my opinion, between Loki and Iron Fist. So, you know, it's a bit of a toss-up there. One of the champions that I just remembered off the top of my head that I missed out is Beast in the Mutant one, so props to you guys if you got this far in the video, but I think Beast is probably... He ain't so bad. He ain't so bad. He's kind of like a better version of She-Hulk, in my opinion. He has a really nice stun, can regenerate a bit. It's a little bit tricky to pull off his regeneration. It takes like a little bit of time, but the fact that he has regeneration and it's quite a decent amount, and also the fact that he can deal a nice amount of bleed damage does bring a little bit extra to the table, but you could also argue he's very similar to Old Man Logan. Again, I don't have a copy of Beast myself, but I have played around with the character and kind of looked at him on other people's accounts back in the day, guys. Back in the day when I wasn't... you know, getting the finger wag from Kydland for doing that. So I think he's, you know, I think he's a bit better than Old Man Logan in comparison. But I'd really, really like to get my hands personally on a 4-star Beast so I can play this champion a little bit more. But it could potentially be argued, you know, if you've got a Beast, if you find him very, very underwhelming, it could be an additional vote for the worst mutant champion. But yeah, we'll see, guys. This is entirely up to you, entirely on your vote, entirely on your decision. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Hope you got some insight into maybe some of the worst characters in the game. I'm very excited to see what you guys choose as the worst character for every class. I'm very, very excited to do the announcement tomorrow and also defend the champions, guys. Who are the worst champions? Let's talk about their pros. Let's highlight like anything we positively can about these champs and see what we can do. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, feel free to leave a thumbs up. That'd be greatly appreciated. Apart from that, guys, it is Boxing Day today. Hope you're having a great day regardless. Take care and have an absolutely fantastic day.